Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Star Trek New Worlds. My name is Tony. Straight in from the front. The battles are ablazing, and then we've got some stories to tell you. But before I get into that, if it's your first time here and you're wondering what in the world Star Trek New Worlds is, Tony, it is a turn-based strategy game that we play here online with you today on Facebook Live, yay, Twitch, and YouTube. We play it showing you the story and the evolving narrative that is our war game that we play with the rule set of Federation Empire as published by the Amarillo Design Bureau. The magic of the map is produced by Vassal, and we'll see that in a moment. Again, if it is your first time here, you'll see the chat over there on the side of the screen. Between me and that chat is a QR code that you can take your phone, and head down to that link there below. And if you are so inclined and so inspired, you can also send us a disruptor blast of caffeinated goodness throughout our broadcast. And if coffee isn't quite your taste, but you are looking to join us as one of the many turn-based strategy fans here, loving what we do, then you can be like Zormer's support house down there. Hit the subscribe button and help us get towards that magic number of 500 subscribers. That unlocks the community tab here on YouTube. That's our goal, and we're currently around 317 as I broadcast to you today. But without further ado, let's get into the galactic news. Creepers creepin'? More mysterious makeshift malefactors meander in from the margins. Thank you, Daniel. Raider ships, nearly all of them rebuilds of civilian freighters, continue to chip away at the edge of the galaxy. Where do they come from? What do they want? We will be sending our own undercover reporters out into the vast reaches in hopes of getting the scoop. Stay tuned. The Battle of Three Navies. Over the world of Sonas, the fleets of Romulan, Klingon, and Borak fought a titanic three-sided battle, with no two fleets allied. The confused Amelie quickly ejected the Romulans from the area, leaving the Klingon West Fleet in command of the field. After brushing aside the remaining defenses, bombs fell on the capital, and the government surrendered unconditionally. The Klingon war machine marches on. Are they destined to unite the galaxy under their fashionable yet oppressive leather boot? Time will tell. Wormhole warfare. Not satisfied with the conquest of Sol, 3 Klingon fleets stormed through the wormhole in Sector Tango 36 and set ablaze to 3 Gorn base stations. While the Klingons and Gorn are members of separate alliances, there had been no hostilities between them previously. Rumors abound of a round of heated diplomacy between the empires in that area of the galaxy, but no one knew it was a prelude to invasion. Can the Klingons fight the whole Triple Alliance alone? Will their allies join in? Or, if so, this promises to be the largest galaxy-wide conflict ever seen. Parocking space? The paw of the Carnivons has landed on Parock with a vengeance. Capitalizing on the weakened state of the Kzinti fleet, the Carnivons renewed their assault on the world of Parock and crushed its defenses. Hunting packs were seen racing through the Grand Palace, and it is rumored that the Patriarch was yowling as he was chased from the throne room. While the Carnivon fleets refit and repair, everyone is wondering, what target will they choose next? Computerized combatants counting coup? As they withdrew from Klingon space, a Juggernaut fleet mauled Green Fleet, killing and damaging several ships. While they moved out for the attack is as much a mystery as to why they sortied against the Klingons in the first place. Are these attacks random, or is there a method to their mechanical madness? For now, the two largest Juggernaut fleets have retreated back into the unexplored center of the galaxy. Who knows when they will strike again? And that is your galactic news. All right, all right. Now, before we get rolling and strolling and showing you what's exactly happening on the big bad map, let's take a moment and check in with the chat. As always, Bill, yo, 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 or yo, ho, yo, ho. Happy Gorns are here. Eugene, our famous, infamous, and definitely popular public affairs officer, press agent, and marketeer extraordinaire, saying the week's wait ends. New developments disclosed. Gorns near the end? Question mark. End of conquest of broken states. Returning to the ISC wormhole home? What? Returning through the ISC wormhole home? Question mark. Yeah, question mark over my head. Are the Juggies targeting them, or is it someone else? Eugene, all will be revealed, at least until the final minutes. Cliffhanging moment. Wah! Yes, Bill is confirming he lost several bases to the Klingons. We will get into that in detail momentarily. Devin Dean is in the house. Paul, hoorah! George Forknell is here. Bill, the Gorn suffered a minor flesh wound. Shake it off and build more bases. Terry Mullins is in the house. The Carnivon, indeed. Who else we got here? We've got, well, let me see. Paul says more raiders to blow up. He's enjoying that. Oh my goodness. Eugene, where is the Alpha of Juggy? Where is the recaptured Klingon ship once captured by the Juggy? We'll find out all that and more in mere moments. All right. Well, let's take a moment. Let me pull up the EP and fleet cap numbers so that I'm ready to rock and roll as we roll into the map. All right, welcome to the map. Let's talk about money with the EP calculations right here in the center. We've got the Carnivon at a massive 48 as they are climbing the economic ladder with their recent conquering of the Kzinti planet. The Gorn are at 64 despite their most recent battering, most recent assault, most recent whatever. Despite the most recent combat, the Gorn are increasing in their economic size. The ISC are at 61. Oh my goodness, 61. Crazy. They've jumped a couple EP there. The Klingons are at 91. Just a ridiculous number. The Remans are at 75 and a half. Romulans at 54.5. And the Tholians rounding us out here at 75 even. So currently, as it stands, we've got the Klingons at 91. The Remans and the Tholians neck and neck at 75 and a half and 75 each. The Gorn at 64 with the ISC right behind them at 61. The Romulans at 54 and a half and the Carnivons at 48. Certainly everyone's climbing higher, but definitely interesting to see the different sort of layers or groupings of economies. But that's not the whole story. Let's talk about fleet size. Yes, the Carnivon are at 108 total ships with 278 total attack factors. They are definitely building some big M ships, and we'll see those in a moment. The Gorn, not to be left behind, are also at 109 now total ships with 290 total attack factors. Interesting. So there are 290 attack factors with 479 fleet cap or 473 defense factor compared to the Carnivon's 278 attack with 411 defense factors. A lot of cripples there because their total fleet cap is 499 compared to the 411 versus the Gorn's 479 fleet cap to their 473 defense factor. So interesting split there. The ISC also in the plus 100 club at 104 ships with 342, still kicking strong with 342 attack factor, 495 defense, fleet cap of 505. The Klingons still slowly but surely increasing their fleet size, although recent losses have impaired that. At 119 total ships, 426 total attack factors, 493 defense, with a fleet cap of 538. The Remans still the top of the pack with 140 total ships in their fleet with 432 attack factors, 533 defense, total fleet cap 600. So that's quite that's like 67 difference. So they've got quite a few cripple ships there. The Romulans, still in the sub 100 club at 78 total ships in their fleet with 281 attack, 445 defense. Interesting to note, eh? The Gorn with 109 ships at 290. The Romulans with, geez, like 30 less ships at 281. So close in attack factor and close, reasonably close in defense factor with a total fleet cap of 448 compared to the Gorn's 479. So it's an interesting comparison. The Tholians at 135 total ships. They're not changing too much, but they are still second when it comes to total ships in their fleets. 294 attack factors. This is a ridiculous number. 555 fleet cap. Wow. 555 defense factor. Their fleet cap is 582. And that is our EP and fleet cap. Woo! All right. Well, since so much exciting things are happening still in the Balkans, let's talk about, whoa, don't take that away. Let's talk about what's going on here with the Carnivon. So let me take away the ships real quick, and you can see the disposition of what's going on. You can see that they have taken the planet of Parak here, this medium planet. So medium planets are normally 4 EP total, 2 EP when devastated, which is what's happened here. So their EP went up by 2. And if we bring up the ships here, you can see we've got Ruby Fleet. Let's pull up Ruby. Carnivon. Ruby. There. Oh, wow. That's a lot of crippled ships. Wow. Let's look at Topaz. Wow. Carnivon Topaz. Okay. Wow. Okay. That's... Look at all those crippled ships. Holy Dinah. Okay, so 1, 4, 3. Oh, there's just so many crippled ships. Wow, it must have been a total slugfest over Parak to be able to take it. We've only got the DN and 3, granted, M-era CAs, but 3 CAs that are unscathed. Unbelievable. So we've got 7 Y-era frigates, 3 M-era frigates, 3 Y-era destroyers, and a drone bombardment destroyer, a commando cruiser, 6 drone bombardment cruisers, 2 light cruisers, Y-era light cruisers, 3 M-era light cruisers, 4 Y-era cruisers, and a YCC, all crippled. Wow, it must have been a total beat down over Parak, because that is crazy. So in contrast, for example, you look at that, and then you look at their sort of their target, which is the Lyran home system here. So what do we got? We got Lyran home fleet still over the capital, and this is what they got. So certainly the Lyrans can defend and push off the Carnivons without any issues at this point. But as we can see here, that's not their only concern. We've got the Gorn coming in hot and heavy with 3 named fleets. Wow. Okay, 3 named fleets coming in from the south. Let's take a look at what's in those named fleets. Okay, so Mobile Fleet is at the wormhole, and Mobile Fleet, as we can see here, is a series of W-era ships, so not necessarily contributing that much, potentially, in a fight. But we do have Hammer, Home, and Vengeance Fleet. So that's Hammer in the bottom, Vengeance Fleet, and I'll show Home there in a second. So Vengeance Fleet is a YDN, so that's good for command, can control 10 ships plus itself. You've got 2 YCCs, 3 CLs, 4 DDs, 4 frigates, and a commando cruiser. And then from Hammer Fleet, 2 M-era cruisers, which is bringing the heavy guns, and a CLM, light cruiser in the M era. And then, of course, they've got Home Fleet there. Let's take a look at Home Fleet. Home Fleet is also YCC, YCL, 4 YDDs. Let's put that there. And 2 FFs. So all in all, we've got a fairly decent fleet that probably, based on the M era, firepower, plus there's a DDM here, I think they could probably put the, make it a go for the Lyran home system. Let's just take a look at the capital itself. So the capital has, on the home planet, you've got a YDK and 11 planetary ground bases. Now, if we've learned anything about planetary ground bases and their impact over, for example, Parak with the Carnivons, we know that that is going to be a heavy fight. Sorry, just putting my water bottle down. So that's going to be a heavy fight, and we've got 6 planetary ground bases and 4 on the other planets in the system. So, knowing the system defense rules, I think that the Gorn could take it, but I think they're going to suffer some casualties, some significant casualties in the lead up to it. So we'll have to see how that all works out, how it all sort of comes out in the wash, so to speak. But it's going to be interesting to see how that sort of pans out over the next little while. Interesting. Okay. And let me move my head to the other side, because far to be outdone, there is the Remans. And so the Remans over here are sitting on Triton Fleet. Oh, wow. Okay, so let's pull up Triton Fleet. I think I know what this is going to look like. So Triton Fleet's a little battered and bruised. Fair. But let's look at what isn't. We've got not included in the fleet, we've got 2 KRMs. Now, those, again, are the Maulers, the KRMM, I should say. So that's the M-era Mauler for the Remans. It is a 10-9 ship. He's got 2 of them. Plus, he's got 5 of them. Jesus Christ. 5 of them in the fleet. So that's a total of 7 10 attack factor ships that can all, one at a time, do directed damage against a single target for 10 damage. So that's 70 attack factors with 7 ships. Not to be outdone, they still have a KD-4C, a tug, which is the KRT. It itself is a 6-8 ship, and so a tug that can move. And you've also got another M-era cruiser, the KRM. So you've got quite a few combat-capable ships that could easily go in there and just decimate the Lyran defenses, because just the 70 attack factor that they generate. I think when we looked at it last time, Compot. So Compot just shows us the total combat factors of the different fleets. And if we look here at the Lyran home fleet, let's see if I can find Lyran home fleet. So here on Lyran home fleet, for example, it has 16 ships in it and has a total attack factor of 44. The defense factors of the ships alone is 76, which is effectively the attack factors of that, just those 7 ships plus a cruiser. Man, that if the Remans wanted to, they could clean house. And I don't know that anybody could stop them. Just saying. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But it's a very, very interesting sort of development there. So we've got the 3 factions here fighting over the Lyran. Not yet fighting, but shall we say posturing for the Lyran capital. We've got the Carnivon, just finished their wrap-up of the Kzinti. You've got the Remans, which are still repairing and, retooling after their recent encounter or conquering of Red Roost. And then you've got the Gorn sneaking up here from the south. And, of course, they've got some other things in their basket, which we'll talk about here in a moment. Let's slide me over to the other side as we scroll down here. Nothing much happening in the Klingon section of space. We'll take away the ships real quick. You can see bases up and running. Just providing plugs, that's a word, plugs for the wormholes. And we'll have more bases being built around these various areas shortly. Oh, let's put the bases back. We got ships floating around, and we'll get that diplomatic ship trying to improve the planetary attitude of everybody, because, God, we don't want everybody to be hateful. Not for now. Let's take a look at the... Oh! Interesting. Okay, let's take a look at the Tholians here. Okay, so let's look at the Tholians real quick. The concern has always been in the top corner here, this First Fleet. So First Fleet was this 369 disposition of ships in their fleet because of the sorry, I'm thinking and trying to look for something at the same time. For the pinwheel effect that they can pull off. So if we pull up First Fleet here, we can see they have 3 CMs. So these are their M-era cruisers, which are 6.7s. We've got 3 of the DDs, the DDMs. So these are destroyers, M-era, 6 of them. And then their patrol craft, which are like frigates, they have 9 of them. So 3, 6, 9 disposition right here on this YDK. That is going to be a very difficult fleet to remove if that is the intent. It's gonna be a pain without a doubt. What else do we have here? On the Kzinti planet, we have the 312th Battle Squadron, which I believe, not much going on there. We've got a captured Riemann ship, 3 DDs, and 2 Y-era cruisers. Nothing much going on there. I think just working to explore and sort of continue to expand their territory here. It'll be interesting to see how that all goes. As we scroll down, we can see, look at that patrol craft sitting over this world. We've got on their home system, probably still, a boatload of Y ships. Let's take a look at their home fleet. Yeah, home fleet. So Tholian home fleet has, 3 CMs, which are these cruisers, again, and M-era cruisers for them. A Y, I wonder if they can, So I don't know this about the Tholians, we'll have to find out. But I think it looks like they are converting their Y-era ships into M-era ships. I didn't realize they could upgrade them that way. And if that's what they're doing, because they had a boatload of ships here, that's very interesting. That's like a Romulan-esque advantage. It's very, very interesting. Okay. Well, that's going to slightly change the calculus, because I was thinking they had to sort of dismantle or get rid of their Y-era ships to build the M-era ships, but interesting. Okay. Otherwise, we've got a bunch of ships sitting here on the various wormholes. Interesting to note, there are 2 Gorn-owned ISC ships. CLs, actually. Interesting. So 2 YCLs from, well, I'll have to go talk to the ISC and see what's going on. But these are 2 ISC ships that have been traded and converted, obviously, into Gorn ships. Interesting. And, of course, Strike Fleet has gone through this wormhole from the ISC side, and they are continuing their journey. We've got Third Fleet down here, which, again, not much going on with Third Fleet. There we go. CC, we've got a couple of DMs. So 4 M-era destroyers, 4 M-era patrol craft, and 2 Y-era cruisers. Interesting. And I wonder if that's the same thing for Second Fleet. So really what we're seeing here is that the Tholians are progressively upgrading their fleet. Yes, we can see quite a few M-era destroyers here. We got a total of... This is a little confusing. So we've got a total of 5 M-era destroyers, 3 Y-era destroyers, 4 YPCs, and some commando ships, and then some 4 of these Y-era cruisers. So that's interesting. That's quite a collection of ships sort of defending that wormhole. And of course, we still got Brachyfleet here. This is the remnants, or the the Juggernaut fleet that's just kind of sitting there on the border, or on that base station, keeping things looking nice. So Brachyfleet, as you can see there over my head, cruiser, light cruiser, 3 destroyers, and a total of 5 frigates. Interesting. Okay. Well, now let's get into the exciting stuff of the Gorn. Well, let me move my head to the other side. And we'll start with the far right, and we'll move our way over to where my head is here. All right, let's start off with West Fleet and sort of what happened on the edge of this area of territory. So you can see here, West Fleet, there is Sonas, as was in the Galactic News. We have West Fleet moved in and conquered this planet. The 12th Legion, which was sitting there or no, I don't know if it was 12th Legion. Yeah, no, 12th Legion was on this planet, and they had to retreat and withdraw from the combat, and then the Klingons took the planet of Sonus. Sonus is a minor planet, so it's a 3 EP, 1 when devastated, and that is here. What's the advantage of taking Sonus? Well, of course, there's EP, but it is a logistic hub. Obviously, all those planets provide logistic sort of reach, and so you can see here 1, 2, 3, 4 that provides that reach. Not only to the west, but also to the north, because what do we got here? Rivetti Fleet. Now, Rivetti Fleet is sitting on a battle station, or is it a base station? Come on. Bats. Yeah, so it's a battle station, 1212. And let's pull up the minor fleets and take a look at what's in Rivetti. Rivetti. So you can see here it is a light cruiser, 2 destroyers and 3 frigates. Not the largest fleet in the world, but we will endeavor to try and eliminate, because of course the juggernauts are just loving life these days and just stirring the pot with everybody. And I know there's at least somebody in the chat who loves us going after the juggernauts. Well, the Klingons will give you what you're looking for. We can't go after any bases on the other side of the map where that big fleet came out, and I'll show you that in a moment. But we can certainly target that little sucker. And so I'm going to reach out there and stomp those juggernauts and get rid of that business. That is garbage. We'll sort that out. So, and then of course we've got some Orions down below. As we move further to the west towards my head here on the map, you will notice that we have the Gorn with a survey cruiser, 4th Fleet, which let's not discount this fleet because of what's happening. So 4th Fleet, we'll put that up here. 4th Fleet is a dreadnought, commands 10 ships, 3 CCs, 9 DDs, and 8 FFs. So, I mean, not the most combat effective fleet in the world. In fact, let's pull up Compot here and I'll show you exactly what it is. So Gorn 4th Fleet has let's see here, let's look up Gorn GGG. Gorn Patrol, maybe it'll be in the numbers here. 4th Fleet Gorn, here we are. So it has a total of 21 ships. It has 49 attack factor, 83 defense factor, which is not nothing. And of course, like I say, 21 ships, 49 attack, 83 defense. So that's good. And they're just on the other side of where all this business is happening. We'll talk about that in a moment. We have a YBS here, which is there's a tug there as well. I'm not sure. Maybe they're looking to upgrade that base station as they were moving forward and up into the Juggernaut territory. And then you can see here this little business here. So before I show you all the ships, let's just show you the geography. So the Wormhole Hotel is right here. And this pops into the FTZ. This is this free transit zone that the Gorn and the Romulans negotiated. So this whole area here is all the quote-unquote free transit zone. So we bring back ships, and you can see here that the Klingons came through the wormhole, and we destroyed 3 bases. There was a base sitting right here on Sierra 36. There was a base on Tango 33. And there was a base in Uniform 35. So 1, 2, 3, 3 bases. Now, why do we do that? As we've talked about before, we just showed you the Remans, sorry, not the Remans, the Tholians, there we are, have First Fleet right above my head there, you can see here. Now, they're building up this fleet, mostly defensively, but you can see that if the Klingons, for example, were going to attack the Tholians, they were most likely going to attack from this area here, or from the north in some way, shape, or form, because that's where this wormhole comes through, and that's where this area, the Klingon zone, is, right? Fair. Now, with the advent of discovering that this hotel wormhole comes out down here, this is quite literally the opposite corner of Tholian space that it pops out of. So this provides sort of like a pincer or an opposite threat, potentially, or balance to the Tholians, meaning that if they want to present a defensive force like they did in the top left corner, they'll have to build more ships and send them down here, and they'll have to split their forces, right? So splitting their forces in that way provides this dynamic threat vectoring that forces the Tholians into a more complicated decision-making process. Fair? Now, why did we go in there and attack the Gorn, though? Well, so let's first of all, let's talk about the Gorn and how good they are. So at the very beginning of this game, or in the earlier stages of the game, the Romulans and the Klingons had a fight. And the Carnarvon jumped in on that fight and sort of, as we talked about, backstabbed the Klingons, which we sort of got them back for later. But what was critical during that war was that the Gorn combined and allied with the Klingons to be able to attack the Romulans, or put pressure, at least, on the Romulans to cease their war, so that the Klingons could then pivot and then focus on the Tholians, the Carnarvon. So they were friends, right? They were allies. They were helping us out, and that's great, absolutely. Somewhere along the way, the Gorn and the Carnarvon there was some friction that existed between the Carnarvon and the Gorn. And I think it had something to do, I don't know all the details, but I think it had something to do with that little pocket of Gorn space that was sort of on the far right of the map, just above where the Carnarvon space was, in the corner where the ISC were. And obviously the ISC traded something for that, and the Gorn ships have left ISC space. But something from that exchange resulted in some bad blood. Now, I don't know if it was because of that or because of just geography, and that's a fair enough point. Geography is a reality we all got to deal with. The Gorn are surrounded by the Tholians on the north and the Romulans on the east. The Klingons are nowhere to be found. So when they were going to cooperate and collaborate with different factions, who are they going to collaborate with? Of course, they're going to collaborate with their neighbors. Ladies and gentlemen, a coffee has been fired from Chillblame. Cheers, Terry. Obviously, Chillblame understood that chill the blame, maybe that's what he's trying to say. That my voice is getting a little rough. Let me take another swig. All right, so the Gorn needed to ally themselves, or at least align themselves with some folks, because of course, after the whole Hydran affair, the four powers aligned themselves together, which is the Remans, the ISC, the Carnarvon, and the Klingons, right? So you got these four rather significant powers on one side of the map, kicking butt and taking names. And the Gorn are like, we gotta pick a side. And since the four powers can't help the Gorn, who are they going to ally with? Obviously, the Tholians and the Romulans. It only makes sense. So they have, and they've been cooperating specifically with the Tholians by basically, doing trade and sending ships in common space and various other things like this. So there is a very strong connection at this point between the Tholians and the Gorn. So if the overall strategy, long term, is to attack the Tholians, then for the Klingons, once this wormhole popped up, that becomes a concern and or an opportunity when it comes to the Tholians. Because if we were to attack the Tholians, there is a reasonable chance that the Gorn would then become, as their allies, would then perhaps come to their aid and perhaps threaten that wormhole. And if that was the case, then, they're going to potentially come through that wormhole and threaten that little pocket of space I have above the Tholians in the Balkans, and that becomes an issue. I have to spend ships and units defending that wormhole. So if I have to defend the wormhole anyway, why don't I control the other side of the wormhole and then use that as a launching point to further threaten or create this dynamic threat environment for the Tholians? Okay, but again, if I attack the Tholians and the Gorn are their ally, are they going to attack us? Well, there's the threat. So here's what's happened. The Klingons have engaged in an exercise to be able to claim part of the FTZ. The FTZ isn't anyone's territory, right? It's a neutral territory or zone of territory that allows for free transit for the Romulans and the Gorn, essentially, to be able to get towards the Juggernauts. So what are the Klingons doing? We're engaged in a special military operation, love that terminology, to be able to secure a footprint in the FTZ that is Klingon space, thereby denying free transit in that area. Only allies of the Klingon Empire can transit through that Klingon territory. Now, if the Gorn or anybody else isn't an ally of the Klingons, well, then we go to fisticuffs. If they are allies of the Klingons, then they can travel it no problem. So what does that do? That puts a decision or a dilemma in front of the Gorn and possibly the Romulans, which is, if you want to transit through the FTZ, you have to decide, do I want to be friends with the Klingons, like their ally, and then freely transit that space, no harm, no foul, or do I want to maintain my alliance with the Tholians, because you can't do both, maintain my alliance with the Tholians and go to war with the Klingons? So it's like which of the options do you want to choose? Maintain alliance with the Tholians and therefore conflict potentially with the Klingons, at least in this context, or assuming that you still want the transit through that area, or if I want the transit, make nice with the Klingons, become their ally, and then I can transit no problem. And the reason why the alliance thing is so critical is because when you're in an alliance with another faction, you can't attack them. So you have to break the alliance before you can attack. And I believe the rules say that you can only break it on the spring. Our rules say you can only break it on the spring turn, and you can't just break it and attack. I think there needs to be like a turn or something that happens there. I'll have to reinvestigate those rules around alliance. But regardless, if someone breaks an alliance with you, you know what's coming, or there's some telegraphing about what could occur, as opposed to what's now, which is that if you aren't allied with them and they have a free transit zone, we saw what happened when the Klingons did that to the Carnarvon, right? So if you don't want that to happen to you, right? So control the situation. This is the Klingon perspective, right? This is just my perspective. So the question is, put the dilemma in the Gorn's lap. Put the dilemma on them to say, choose one side or the other. If you choose one side, okay, we'll see how that goes. If you want to be allies with us, that's another choice. And then we still allow you the free transit up there. So we haven't had those flushed out diplomatic discussions as of yet to what that would look like or what have you. But nonetheless, that is sort of the impetus of what's going on here, because the three priorities for the Klingons is defense of the Balkans and that wormhole, the strategic positioning relative to the Tholians, and the existential threat that represents from, or at least for the Balkans, when it comes to Tholian allies through that wormhole. So that's sort of how that goes. And when it comes to Westfleet and how that potentially fits into this whole picture, the Romulans have been exploring, as I've put it, exploring Klingon space. Nice of you to do, as they've rounded over that border, right? That border right here, as you can see that right next to Westfleet, and they've been pushing into this area of space. Well, of course, from the Klingon perspective, this is all still Klingon space, so that's fine. We have to reassert, and of course, if you don't assert your sovereignty, then people are going to walk all over you. So we have to reassert our sovereignty. First step, taking Sonus. And then if we sort of establish our sovereignty, then we can connect that space with the FTZ, and then that provides a connection two ways, not only through the wormhole in the Balkans, but also from this side as well. So we have a two-factor sort of supply route potentially through and to this wormhole in this area, because you never know with wormholes, they can always potentially move or disappear, do other things. So we've had a couple wormholes move around and do funky stuff. So this is just a contingency plan to be able to reinforce that area should the wormhole move in some way, shape, or form. So let's talk about the thumbnail. Is this the beginning of the end of the Gorns, by example? Well, I don't know. I'll let you think about that while I jump into the chat, because we're going to explore the progression of the Gorn in the game and how it rank, or what their situation is right now. We've talked about the diplomacy, or sorry, the diplomatic and geopolitical dynamic when it comes to the alliance issue, the working with the Klingons and now the working with the Tholians and how that all works. But let's talk about the numbers when it comes to the military here in a moment. But let me jump into the chat real quick, and we'll go over that. Okay, so let's talk about the chitty chat. All right, let's jump into where did we leave off? We had We'll start off with Bill saying Gorn are giving the Juggies EP to go after the Clinks. Terry says that sounds like rationalization. Daniel, the GM, is helping run a con today, so everybody say hi. When he says that, that's not like a convention is what he means. So everybody say hi to Daniel, our GM. He'll be watching the video later. More like wishful thinking. Vol says payment for resources and YDK. That was Gorn in now ISC space. So what that sounds like is that the Gorn paid the ISC, or rather the ISC paid the Gorn for the YDK and the resources, and now they allowed them free transit to get out. So that's fair. So thanks, by the way, Paul. Do you have a Y fleet or two I can rent? Ha ha ha. Terry's backstab is a matter of opinion. Fair. One might say the Carnarvon were merely opportunistic, right? I remember actually in the exchange, there was something about, because of course the Carnarvons are like a pack of wolves, right? So there was something about in the exchange, and I'd have to go back and find it, but there was something about soft underbelly of prey, and that as a predator you couldn't resist, or something along those lines. And you were absolutely correct, because in that situation at that moment, the Klingons were presenting a very soft underbelly to the Carnarvons, and so it was ripe for ravaging, you might say. And so that happened. And like what happened when the Carnarvon did that to the Klingons did it right back to the Carnarvon, and sort of tit for tat, and now we're all even, so to speak. So anyways, that's how that worked out. All right, so then we have the coffee. Eugene, are the Klingons now at war status versus the Gorn? Yes, and Romulans after these attacks. So there's two issues with war status. So very clearly, the Klingons are at war status with the Gorn. Why? Because A, we attacked and destroyed bases of theirs, but we're not in their territory, right? So there's two criteria around, and I'm going to pull it up and find the rules on this, because we have a when it comes to the definition of war, we have a very we have a very specific definition for it. So let me find it here. It's going to take me a second because, of course, it's in an Excel sheet and it's incredibly hard to find. Oh, goodness gracious. It'd be great if somebody else could find it while I was talking. Definition of own territory. Okay, so it's a little, let me zoom in here. Maybe it'll make it a little easier to... I'll zoom in one more. Whoa. Okay. Move my head to the other side. And here we go. Okay. So we have this spreadsheet where we have we've noted amendments to different rules. So let's see. So right here in this column here. So definition of own territory. In the absence of a neutral zone, all hexes an empire has supply to. Right? So that's important. Limited war. An empire may change its economy to limited war in order to raid, send more than one ship, or to deal with a pirate or raider, engage in military operations against a minor empire, against monsters if a successful ID suggests more than one ship is needed. The monster approaches within 2 hexes of a planet or colony. The responding ship is destroyed, or if a base station is destroyed, the empire may change to limited war. Required peace. An empire cannot have its economy on a war footing unless uninvited ships of a major empire have crossed into your own territory since your last turn, or your empire has fixed supply to a valid military target, planet, or base, a major empire that it does not have a peace treaty with. Okay. That's a little convoluted and a little complicated. Oh, I feel like there's another spot in here where we have definition of war. These are neutral factions, conquering empire. All right. Well, regardless. So when we look at the map, and I'll pull up the map here again in a second, we're going to look at the supply to other military targets. So when you attack another player, you can go to war status, right? And because the only reason you can go to war is if A, they've crossed the neutral zone into your territory, which, as we just discussed with the FTZ, is not the case here. With the FTZ, this isn't Gorn or Romulan territory. It is the free transit zone. It's a large neutral zone, if you want to call it that. So no one's crossed into Gorn territory yet. However, I have attacked and destroyed Gorn ships and assets. And in combination of that, so why will they be able to, or how are they not forced into peace? How are they able to maintain war status? Because the Gorn have valid supply to a valid military target. These three fleets are valid military targets, and they have 1, 2, 3. They have 3 different, assuming supply 4, they have 3 different bases, 1, 2, 3, that have supply to these units. So they have supply to valid military targets. And of course, there's this base up here. So arguably, I could force the Gorn into peace if I captured and or destroyed any and all of their supply points that would extend their supply radius to any valid military targets. Now, the problem with that is that when we take away the ships, they got a base and a planet here that has 1, 2, 3, 4 supply, which means they'll always have, if I have a base here, which is my intention, they'll always have valid supply to a military target. So we're going to stay at war for any length of time, unless we come to a diplomatic agreement whereby we establish a new neutral zone and divided territory. Now we can choose to essentially have a ceasefire or something like that and go that route. But yeah, we are going to maintain a war status from an economic standpoint until one of us decides, or until we decide on a neutral zone between us, or there's some other kind of diplomatic agreement. Because even if, by example, if the Klingons took this planet, they still got this planet, which has supply reach to it, and then, of course, all their other bases. So I would effectively have to destroy their, capture their capital, because 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, they have a chain of planets that provides supply essentially to valid military targets, which are mine. I would have to capture all those supply points in order to prevent them from attacking me. Does that make sense? Now, from the Romulan perspective, we could maintain war status. So we are at war status right now. I attacked their ships. They retreated. And we've got 2 bases here which have supply, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, to a valid military target, which is not only a planet that they could conquer, but the fleet that's there to defend it. So they have the rationale to maintain war status. But I haven't crossed a border of theirs because this is technically not Klingon or Romulan territory based on the agreement that we had established. So I attacked them. I attacked the planet, and they withdrew. I actually haven't fired on any of their ships, so I think it's a flexible point depending on the GM's decision. But it's from a hard line perspective from the rules. Am I at war with the Gorn? Yes. Am I at war status with the Romulans? Yes. We could, of course, come to an agreement whereby we're not, but that's where we are right now. So anyways, hopefully that answers that question. My goodness, that was a long answer. Okay. Where are we here? Kai the Empire. The Gorn have a lot of ships away from the battle. Dangerous. Yeah, so think about this. The Gorn arguably now the Gorn have, well, we'll talk about that in just a second. The Gorn have an interesting dynamic when it comes to their military operations. They have a dilemma, a choice to make. And so it'll be interesting to see how they choose to go forward or change their approach. Dell's in the house. Hello to Zeromer's support house. Hope you are watching. I know you were on last week. Okay. So let's talk about the Gorn and their dilemma. So the Gorn currently have, and we'll go back to the map here so I can pull up the numbers. So let's pull up the fleet cap numbers. Anytime you're ready, brain. There we are. You know, sometimes it feels like the processor is like I got the circle of death going on inside. It's terrible. It's like bad software. I don't know. I just spilled coffee on myself. Oh my goodness. What a waste of coffee. All right, let's talk about the analytics here. If we look at the pure numbers, right? Klingons have 119 ships, the Gorn have 109. So that's a difference of 10 ships, not significant in my mind. The number of ships itself, not an issue. Especially since when you're at war status, you can like produce the maximum number of ships typically, because with an economy of 63 or 64 now for the Gorn and 91 for the for the Klingons, there's no constraint there around building. If they want to build more ships, they can easily build a max build. So they can build ships. The when we look at the Gorn total attack factor, so with this with slightly, ever so slightly fewer ships, they have a 290 total attack factors, and the Klingons have 426. That is something to note. So you're talking about 136 difference in attack factor. Why is that? So let's just think about that for a second and think about why that is. And then when you look at the defense factors, which is usually looking at the ship hulls, you can see that the Gorn have 473, or let's look at fleet cap. That's probably a better number to look at. 479 to the fleet cap of 538 for the Klingons. So it's like 58, 59 difference. It's a large number, but it's not insurmountable. It depends on the disposition or where the ships are located. So when you compare those things, obviously, just from a numbers perspective, it would seem as though the Klingons have an advantage. Well, let's take a look at ships in the area. So in this particular pocket, we've got insatiable, invincible, and invulnerable. And as Daniel, our GM, said, he's getting frustrated and confused because all these battle groups have similar counter names, and it becomes confusing. So I'm going to position them on the right-hand side here based on where they are. So this one is invulnerable, even though it's got the invincible battleship in it. Let's go here. What was it? Invincible, invulnerable, invincible is the next one. So that one is the middle one. And then insatiable is on top. Klingon, insatiable. Whoop. All right. Let's see if we can try and make it a little bit prettier, shall we? All right. So what do we got here? We've got 3 fleets, top to bottom, and you've got 2 D7s and how many here? 6 E4Ms. So that's not, it is by no means a massive fleet, but it's not nothing. Those D7Ms have an 8 attack each. That's pretty potent. In the middle of the pack, you've got a D4C. What in the world is a Y ship doing there? And 3 F5Ms. So these are destroyers, and then a scout. Again, not a massive amount of ships. And then on the wormhole, you've got the B4B. That's always just by itself scary. You've got a cruiser, a scout, and then 2 of these F4s. And then also just in the hex as well. Here, I'll move these to the side so we can actually see what's in the hex. And then in the hex itself, you've got 2 E4Ms and a tug. So the tug, obviously building a base there. The E4M's just adding to the fleet of ships there. And so if you think about when we looked at the biggest fleet in the area, which was 4th Fleet, and it's a couple turns away, but it's one of the big fleets that the Gorn have, right? And I think what we say their total attack factor was something like 46. So if their attack factor is 46, let's just look at let's look at the one that's defending the wormhole. If they got a 46 attack, the battleship plus the D6M, so there's 6, 13, 15, 27. So there's only a 27 attack factor defending that wormhole. They could bring that fleet in and they could pound on this group. Now, if this fleet consolidated, what would that look like? It'd probably be a little bit harder to take, especially considering the presence of the D7s and the D6. And you add it all together, it becomes a much more difficult equation to manage. But nonetheless, it's an issue. Now, what have the Gorn got on the far side here? They've got New Fleet. Well, what's in New Fleet? Let's take a look. Gorn New Fleet. There we are. So this is a good fleet. First of all, they have a scout, and there are not a lot of factions in the game right now that are using scouts. So the fact that the Gorn are is fantastic. They have a CAM, and this is particular to note. So their cruiser, their M-era cruiser, is a 6-8 ship. Why is that important? Because when you compare it to the current, the two cruisers that the Klingons have predominantly in their fleet, which is the D7, which is an 8-7 ship, so lower on the defense factor, certainly, but it's got an 8 attack. And then the D6, which is just a straight 7 ship. So the straight 7 ship, we'll call it a fair and even shake, because, I mean, the CAM is a 6-8, so a little bit better defense, but not as great offense. But the D7M really adds the offensive firepower, so that's an issue, right? It's a difference of 2. Not to mention the battleship, that's a whole other kettle of fish. The battleship alone is like 2 of those cruisers combined. And then you've got the what looks like the commando cruiser, the 6 DDMs, and the scout. Now, when we do an analysis of or comparison of the unit per unit, the Gorn units individually are slightly less powerful than the Klingon ships unit for unit. If that is the case, then you got to bring more units to the fight. And so just based on that, right now, today, it looks as though if New Fleet is a full build for the Gorn, and I should have just kept that fleet up, I apologize. If that is a new one full build cycle, then or something similar, then you've got 7, 8, 9 ships you can build. No, it's got to be more than a build cycle, but you got to be able to put more ships in the field to balance out the different attack and defense factors. So nonetheless, it's going to be competitive between the Gorn and the Klingons. If we look on the other side of the wormhole, we've got not much there from the Klingons. Like, they've got a bunch of crippled ships here, which they can repair on the base. That's fine. But they don't have a lot of, like, repair capacity there. And they don't have a lot of ships in the Balkans that they can divert into the into that little free transit zone area. I don't know what's going to happen. If we look at the basic numbers, we know that the numbers alone say that the Klingons are bigger and badder when it comes to offensive firepower. But when we look at this little pocket, they're very vulnerable. So at the moment, I don't think it's feasible that the Gorn are going to kick the Klingons out, but they could certainly bloody them up a bit. And the question for the Klingons is, how much do you want to get bloody to be able to hold this position? I don't know. This arguably will be the best time for a negotiated settlement for either side, because at this time, the Gorn are probably, they have the most amount of units that they're ready to deploy, and the balance of military factors in the area is probably the best it's going to be, because they are also distracted, the Gorn that is, and I'll close these out. They are also distracted with this. They've got this attack that they've got going on the Lyran home system. And if they take the Lyran home system, noting their friction with the Carnarvon before, do you really think the Carnarvon are not going to get in on this? So the Gorn have to decide, are they going to fight both fights, or are they going to choose one? If they fight both fights, can they win? Carnarvons have a lot of ships, and a lot of ships in the area. It's also further away for them to fight. Will they be able to effectively field enough ships to be able to fight that fight? It's a question for the Gorn to answer. Arguably, the fight with the Klingons is the easiest one to sort out because it's so close to their homeworld. How are they going to negotiate that? Something to think about. Are the Romulans going to get involved? How are with the Gorn being allied with the Romulans and the Tholians, how are they, or if are they at all, going to call upon the Tholians and or the Romulans to assist them? How is that going to work? If the Romulans decide to get involved, keeping in mind that they have about, 74, 76 ships. And so from a pure numbers perspective, they've got more ships total than the Klingons the Klingons alone. But if the Romulans and the Tholians, by example, get involved in a combat with the Klingons, how is that going to change the dynamic? Remember a couple of key points. You got a wormhole here that goes into Carnarvon space, and they could use that to be able to get involved in the fight. You've got 2 wormholes here that involve the Remans and the ISC. They could get involved in the fight. There's a lot of different dynamics here that could, if the Tholians get involved or if the Romulans get involved, there's a lot of balance that can occur there. So we'll have to see how this all works out. This could be the beginnings of a World War I scenario where you have a bunch of dominoes that fall on each other, bringing the entire galaxy to total war. Which is why, for example, you'll notice that this video is the first video in a new playlist on this channel talking about the end of the game. We are in the late stage of the game, potentially, if we start a total war. If we start a galactic war, then with all factions fighting, this could be the beginning of the end. Interesting. So, something to think about. Is this going to be the precursor to total war? Or are the Gorn and the Klingons, and the Romulans and the Tholians, going to find a negotiated settlement to get themselves out of it? It's sort of like a low-key Cuban Missile Crisis. I mean, Cuban Missile Crisis was a very existential threat. This is less existential in that way. Not immediate, but are the Klingons going to be allowed, permitted, negotiated a settlement whereby they can get a pocket in the FTZ? Will it be what they want versus what they can compromise for? Are the Gorn going to... Are the Klingons going to go all out on the Gorn and just wipe them out? Is anyone going to get involved? If the Romulans get involved, is it going to bring in the Remans and then the ISC and the Carnarvon, or the Tholians and the Romulans and the Gorn side? So much craziness, eh? All right, let's do a quick little chit chat and then we will discuss the rest of the map. Okay, so what do we got? Bill says, oh, hello to the Zoomers. No ships. Bill says, no ships, just bases. No more small fleets from the Remans. Now we making the big ships. Except the scouts give them reaction, Bill says. So the way that scouts and reaction work is the scout can't move. If the scout... So I'm not sure what that's in context for. However... in order for a scout to have extended reaction, basically a scout allows the ships on the hex with the scout to employ extended reaction, meaning that just like with the bases, if you move into a 2-hex bubble around where the scout is located, the ships, possibly including the scout, can move towards, in an extended reaction movement, towards that unit. Then it moves, then the reaction movement. So again, check out the tutorial on reaction movement if you have any questions about that. Now, when it comes to scouts specifically, scouts, in order to execute that capability, need to have not moved the turn previous, meaning that they move into the hex and sort of like establish themselves as a sensor platform. They can't. It's not like you can move the scout into the hex and it automatically has or always has the extended reaction. Scouts need to be they need to stop in the hex, momentary pause for them to have that extended reaction bonus. So just be conscious of that if and when you're trying to use the extended reaction movement thing when it comes to scouts. For example, the Klingons have a scout in their fleet, but they moved during their last turn. They won't be able to employ extended reaction in that same way. A general war, perhaps. Perhaps. Yes, Terry, perhaps. All right. Let's talk about... Let's talk about... right. Let's talk about the map. What do we got here? So, We talked about the juggernauts, and I'll move my head to the other side because, of course, it's very much in the way. We talked about the juggernauts that came down this little corridor, popped a YDK in Lima 32, and then buggered out. Green Fleet was sitting here in Hotel 31. They took a detour, stopped in to say hi, popped 4 of my E4Ms. So nice of them to do so. We killed 2 of their frigates in exchange, but I don't really see that as an equal exchange. And then they took off, and we took off, and away we go. So as you can see here, Green Fleet is sitting here with a D7 and some F5 backup. And we've also got, of course, West Fleet in the area. We've got bases being built. I'll take away the ships real quick so you can see bases being built here, because when this YDK was popped, or was it? Yeah, sorry. When the YDK in Lima 32 was popped, it broke the connection to this base here. So we're building these 2 bases to make sure that while right now it's an isolated supply grid, that it's fully connected to the rest of my supply grid and there's no issues, no harms, no fouls. So we'll clean out this little fog of war hex so that we can get the crisscross supply going here, make sure that this is fully effective at keeping supply to all these different areas, because that was a little bit of an annoyance when that happened. As you can see here, we've got a bunch of ships that are packed on this base, and this base is going to, not right now, but it will suffer an upgrade. Probably not the best way to describe that. In preparation for a future Juggernaut excursion. So we're gonna buff up the bases in this column to be able to fortify it or make it more resilient to Juggernaut attack. Of course, if those Juggernauts come with that assault dreadnought, there's nothing I can really do. We're moving ships up into the area. So you can see here we've got, as was mentioned, the D7C, commanded by the former E1 captain, now the Commodore. We're now going to refer to the former E1 captain as the Commodore. He is the only Commodore in our fleet. He is one of a kind, special individual, and he will pilot our coordinated effort against the particular Juggernaut threat. So he is in the D7C. You can see that there, along with, and this is a kicker, 3 F5Cs. F5Cs, as opposed to my F5Ms, F5Cs have a 5 attack, 6 defense versus the straight 4/4 of the F5M. This is a notable change. It signals the change in tech level for what the Klingons can build. The F5C is a notable improvement on the F5 platform. It is a 5 attack, 6 defense ship, and I can build them like gangbusters. You can bet your bottom dollar that's going to be coming down the pipe to our Gorn conflict. We'll just see how that all kind of settles out in the wash. So those guys are there. You got a D7C, those guys, E4Ms, and then you can see an E4M Scout. In fact, that's a full build, if you can see that there. Of course, my head is in the... Oh, no, my head's not in the way. So you can see, it's hard to see. I can't zoom in any closer, but D7C, 2 E4Ms, 1 E4M Scout, which has the same EW effectiveness as an F5 Scout. There is the F5s, and then 3 F5Cs. So 15 plus 8, 23 plus 2, 25 plus 9, 34 attack factors in one build. Think about that. That's what the Klingons are building per turn, or at least one of the things they can build per turn. So that's a fleet up there. What else we got going on? We have continued trade going along with the Romulans. What Keska F, Tony? You're having trade with the Romulans while you're at war with them? What can I say? Money talks. So we've got some trade going. And look at this little guy at the very bottom. A auxiliary cruiser has popped its head out of the Mirkwood, and you can see it's very near the Romulan base. I don't think that this auxiliary cruiser is going to kill this base in any way. In fact, it'd probably get demolished by the base. But nonetheless, we can see the space people are continuing to encroach on our area. So we slide over to the Carnarvon. We can see the space lens is continuing its rampage. I don't know. I can't remember if there was a base station on this resource. I feel like there might have been. And nonetheless, it's gone on there and popped that. And it's continuing to move closer to populated areas here. I'm wondering what the Carnarvon are going to do about that, considering their competing demands on on their military resources between the Kzinti and the Lyrans and the Gorn. So many options here. So we scroll down, no more space people for them to deal with. And as we scroll up, we can see here we've got a couple CLs getting repaired at the YDK. This K wormhole is the one that goes into the Balkans on the other side. And so that's their highway to the Balkans and where all that goodness is going to happen. So we scroll up into, let's talk about the ISC, then the Riemann. So we got the ISC. Oh, okay. For a second there, I was like, what happened to the wormholes? So we can see here, this is the former pocket of Gorn space on the very far right of the screen. You can see the YDK there and the YDD. So this is the former Gorn enclave. You can see that we still have ships or fleets in the area, you know, just kind of constabulatory police action kind of stuff, making sure that everybody follows the rules and that nothing catches them by surprise. Justice fleet sitting on that Romulan wormhole or gravity well, just in case they decide to poke their head through. And we can see here on the wormhole side, we've got a judgment fleet, sitting with this tug. There's this other wormhole that has yet to be transited, I believe. So, well, it'd be interesting to see where that pops up. We can see there is still some more space people poking and prodding the area around the ISC space here. So special attack cruiser, I think, coming in and doing it, or special auxiliary cruiser maybe. Anyways, coming in, poking and prodding more space people from the edges. You can see here, this is the wormhole where the Gorn went through to the other side. Again, just as a quick reminder, this wormhole is where it came out. So the Whiskey wormhole. The Whiskey wormhole has Truth, Providence, Integrity, and Order Fleet all on it. So as a quick reminder, Truth Fleet, that's a Dreadnought, 2 command cruisers, a CA, 6 CLs. What is this? Commando cruiser and 2 Dreadnoughts, 2 destroyers. Truth Fleet. Truth, where are you? Oh, no, that is Truth Fleet. Oh, my goodness. What? Providence and Integrity. So Providence just above it with a CL and a boatload. Well, five different DDs there. We've also got Order Fleet right above it with a cruiser. Is that 4 light cruisers and a tug? And, of course, we've also got Integrity Fleet, which is at the top here, command cruiser, light cruiser, and so on. So this is a significant collection of ships. It'd be great to sort of see them consolidated in one fleet, maybe, and then see what they do as far as going through the wormhole if they do that, or at least stopping anything from coming through that wormhole into ISC space. As we scroll up, we can see nothing much else going on with the ISC. Remember, the ISC have been keeping quiet about what it is that they're doing. Again, possibly because they're recovering from the economic damage of their very much prolonged war with the Lyrans. But I'll be curious to see. Oh, I nearly missed it. Can you see what I nearly missed? I'll give you a second. I'm going to take a sip. Take a look. If you see it, pop it in the chat. Let me know. What on this list of fleets is new? I'll give you a hint. One of these things is not like the other. If we look at Law Fleet, which is located on the homeworld of the ISC, we see a CAM, a CLM, and a number of frigates. Now, recently, obviously, they've used those frigates in combat because there's a bunch crippled, but you can see they built, or had built, a total of 5. Their frigates are straight 4. That's pretty good. Their CLMs, 5 6s, and that CA is a 7 8. Now, these are, first of all, these are M-era ships, obviously, so this indicates that not only have the ISC reached M status, but they can build M ships. Keep in mind, the ISC, their M ships, they have, just like some of the other factions, like the Klingons we've shown, have like earlier M ships and later M ships. As we get closer to the late M, early GW era for tech for the ISC, they've got some big hitters as far as ships that they can build. So watch out. They've got some great ships coming it'll be something to watch as we go forward. But congratulations to the ISC for officially, fully being in the M status when it comes to building ships and pumping out that goodness. Hoorah! Paul says he killed some raiders. Well, you know, you gotta take those ships out for a shakedown cruise. Killing some raiders sounds like a good way to go. All right. So that's good. All right, let's scroll down and let's talk about the Juggernaut fleet that retreated. So there was a big fleet here that the Remans had engaged, poked and prodded and beat them up, and then they ran away. So as was noted in the Galactic News, the Juggernaut factions have engaged and retreated against both the Klingons and the Remans. Now, I think for the Remans, it's because they kicked the snot out of the Juggernauts. For the Klingons, I think we just reached the edge of their supply, or they weren't motivated to go any further. So anyways, we'll see how that goes. But what we can see here is that we've got Athena, Cerberus, and Pacific Fleet in the area. Now, the Remans have traditionally been quite potent in this area. Let's pull up. There's Athena Fleet, which again, we've got a Dreadnought and a bunch of, so 2 cruisers, command cruiser, still a boatload of these freaking K4s. So we've got 17 and 10. 17 destroyers, 10 frigates. Oh my God. Okay, Pacifica Fleet. Jeez. I mean, they're Y ships, but there's just so many of them. I mean, they can soak up so much damage. Pacifica Fleet, what do we got? So Pacifica Fleet is 2 cruisers and 12 of those destroyers, those K4s, and then another 10 frigates. So quite a collection. And then Cerberus Fleet, which is just adding to the mix, we've got only 3 K4s and 6 E2s. So you combine all this together, it is a ridiculous amount of ships. And I know that the Remans are motivated to use their ships as intended, as warships, to make war upon their enemies. So the question is, how does Del and the Reman faction want to flex their military muscle and exercise their fleets? I mean, it'll be interesting to see, will they pursue the Juggernauts into the fog of war? Will they prepare for a journey through the wormhole? What will they do? How will they do it? Only time will tell. We'll have to see what happens. So anyways, interesting to see, interesting to note. We'll take a look at what happens as we go. So that is the Remans. As we scroll up here, I'll move my head again to the other side, and we can see here, this is the Balkans where we started. Auxiliary battle cruiser making its way from the north. Still this Borak faction untainted up here. I'm surprised. And of course, as we mentioned, rounding it out back to the KRMMs, 7 of which in the 70 attack. It's just ridiculous. 76 attack, I think, if we factored in the KRM there. Yeah, the same attack factor as the defense factor of the home fleet, and they've only got 8 ships in that fleet. Unbelievable. I think if the Remans decided to flex their muscle on the Lyrans don't stand a chance, not to mention anybody who takes the Lyran capital. This 3-way positioning is going to be very, very interesting as we go forward, and I'm going to be so excited to see who comes out on top, because one of the things to note here, I don't think the person who takes the Lyran capital is going to keep the Lyran capital. All right, so that's the map as it's seen in turn 92. What do you think? Do you think that when it comes to the Gorn and sort of the political dynamic that they're in, of course, that's sort of the big story from this guy's perspective. What do you think about the Gorn position? I mean, certainly politically and sort of geopolitically within this game, they are I would say, they're in a very strong spot. They are surrounded by allies. They have, literally, because they're allied with these folks, they have a very focused area of threat or potential threat, which is the Klingons coming through that wormhole. So it's very targeted, and they can sort of contain the Klingons if they want to. The dilemma that they face, though, is this dynamic between the Lyran campaign and the threat that the Klingons represent. Do you ignore one at the expense of the other? I mean, the EP gain from taking the Lyran capital is a pretty big gain. I mean, they had a minor planet, a colony, and a major. So that's a total of 9 EP just in the capital system, not to mention all the other stuff that's there. So like they're looking at a 10 plus EP gain if they take that Lyran pocket. That's a big deal. That puts them at the same level economically as the Remans and the Tholians. Okay. Interesting. So that's a big thing. Now the concern, of course, with the Lyrans is that you've got competing factions that want that pocket too. Obviously the Carnivons, but the Carnivons just got their ass handed to them by the Kzinti. So how long will it take them to repair? They don't have a lot of bases in that area to repair ships. So it's going to take some time for them to recoup those losses and put forward a significant fleet to be able to take that space. So how much time do the Gorn have to get the Lyran capital and hold the Lyran capital? Then, of course, there's the Remans. What are the Remans going to do? The Remans have a ridiculous weapon with that KRMM, that Mauler ship that is a 10-9. That is a ridiculous ship that can just lay waste to anything in its way. So what's going to happen? We'll see. So that's it. Like there's dilemmas within the dilemma, right? Like what do you do in that pocket? Like, do you want to be the first on the Lyran capital and take it? Are you going to be prepared for the competition from these other factions? Are the Remans going to get involved? Are the Carnivon going to get involved? It depends on who takes what. Do the Gorn move first? Do the Carnivon move first? Do the Reman move first? I mean, there's so many options there, right? And then in the balance for the Gorn, do you give up on that potential huge economic boom just to fight the Klingons about this small little pocket of space? Maybe that's what you want to do, because it, of course, for them, it's about getting to the Juggernauts. So do you want to do that? Do you want to make it a pissing match around this little pocket of space and a couple of EP versus the 10 plus EP you're going to get in the Lyran capital or the Lyran pocket? Maybe, if you want to. Is there a negotiated settlement that can sort that out? Maybe. If you go the long haul with the Klingons, what does that look like? Are you going to involve, are the Tholians going to get involved? Are the Romulans going to get involved? Are the Remans and the ISC? Are the Carnivon going to fight more than just the Lyran encounter? There's so much there. And like I say, this could be the domino that starts the galactic war, the general war, as Terry said. So there's so many options here when it comes to the development of this story, of this campaign and this game. And at the end of the day, that's why we play this game, right? Because this is a game, and we're just having fun stirring the pot, creating some interesting options. Let me share this from a role-playing perspective. So remember that the Klingons are based on the Alpha Legion from the pre-Horus Heresy Warhammer 40k universe, so arguably Warhammer 30k. The Alpha and Omegon were two bodies, one soul was the argument, but they're twins. So instead of twins, we have triplets in this case. Out of those triplets, we have the Alpha, which was captured and assimilated by the Juggernauts. We're still talking about, incidentally, I don't know if you noticed, but when we hovered over the, go back where I was talking about the D7 and the F5Cs, on that same hex is the Alpha's JD3. That was the Juggernaut assimilated D3. That ship's going to be repaired, taken back to the homeworld, and we are going to rescue the Alpha, or do our best to try and break down what happened to the Alpha and figure out a way to be able to get as much information out of the Alpha and figure out what's going on. We're gonna dive into that role-playing element there. So there's the Alpha. There was the Omega. The Omicron. And Omicron, of course, was a play on the words because of the big terrible things that were happening in the world. But Omicron, play on Omegon from Warhammer 40k, and he was the subterfuge, diplomatic kind of guy. Now, he was primarily responsible for the Carnarvon campaign and what was going on over there. And that's kind of where he still is located. And then there was the third warmongering crazy guy that was the Gamma. The Gamma is the third of the three triplets, and he is in the battleship Invincible. He is leading the campaign. Of course, again, he is using the Warhammer 40K verse as inspiration. He is whereas the Alpha was a proponent of all-out effort, maximum effort warfare, sort of the Powell doctrine of overwhelming force, and the Omicron was more about subterfuge and deceit and negotiation. The Gamma is a combination of both. Remember that the Alpha Legion is all about I say mistruths. They're all about telling you things that may not be true. In fact, the book Alfarius, which I recommend, starts off with a passage that says, "This is a lie." So the Gamma lies fully transparently to your face. He tells you exactly why he's doing it, or exactly what he's doing, but he doesn't tell you necessarily why he's doing it. And you may misunderstand or misinterpret what he's telling you. He is also a fan of the Powell doctrine, the overwhelming force, and exercises that consistently. In the universe that we're existing here, he has gone down this ritualistic path where he's being motivated and inspired by the acts and the honor and the stimulus of combat. That is why he led or was participating in the Carnarvon campaign. Once the battle and championed and funded the building of the battleship. Once the battleship was built, he pioneered or jumped on that bad boy and ran through the wormhole to be able to go bring order to the Balkans. Very much in the spirit of Gorn, the god of war, the chaos god of war in Warhammer 40K. Gorn, instead of being like a barbarian, like crazy, like insane warrior, the Gamma is more about honor, structure, but at the same time the requirement of order and structure as a consequence of the use of force. So he seeks out conflict to be able to establish structure and order, honor, and accomplishment for him and, of course, the Klingon Empire. So, but he's very ritualistic around it. He is motivated by, shall we say, external forces around why he does what he does, in communication with his now one of the other two siblings that he has. So, so in the context of what's going on here, there's a very rational reason why he's going through that wormhole and engaging in that war with the Gorn, because he sees the threat of the Tholians and wants to balance that out. And based on what's going on, that's why he's deciding to do what he's doing. Now, because of I would argue that attack happened too soon. We should have consolidated the Balkans before executing that attack into Gorn space. But from a role-playing perspective, there was chaos and uncertainty and threat on the other side of that wormhole. We need to fix that. That's why we acted. So hopefully in the future we'll bring some more role-playing elements to this story that we're talking about, and I'll be able to sort of flush that out for you if that's something you want to hear about. So before I carry on, let's talk about the chat. Ooh, look at all this stuff. Okay. Wow. Okay, hold on. I got to follow up here. Small auxiliary cruiser Paul William killed the other Raider fleet. Eugene, Gorn fleet that was in ISC zone that was traded has gone home. What was referred to in the initial chat? Gorn fleet that was in the ISC. Yes. Bill and Terry see the M ships. Paul was saying that he killed Raiders. Terry says, look like a nasty fight. I have full combat. I have a full combat fleet uncrippled, Terry says. Do 5 ships count as a fleet? Arguably, yeah. YDN, anything more than 3, I figure. 3 is a task group, and then anything more is I would argue, a fleet. YDN, 4 CAs, 2 CLs, 6 FFs, all uncrippled, Terry says. Are those... Oh, those are in the pocket of the Balkans. Oh, after repair. Oh, okay, after repair. Yeah, so after repair, that's the YDN with the 4 CAs with the 7 attack, 8 defense. That's a big force, and I think your CLs are what, 5, 6s. So regardless, those are good ships. Is that going to be enough to take the Laren capital? If you want to go that far, we'll see. We'll see. And many Y-tech ships to absorb damage. You mean cripples to get destroyed, Bill says? Yes. Potato, potato. Potato, is that like a wombat? Oh my goodness. No, our different way to say potato. Different way. So tired. Yeah. The Klingons were going to wait for an answer, but they attacked instead. Very greedy, a la World War II. This is a date that will live in infamy. Really? Well, bring it on. All right, let's get excited. So the question is, what's going to happen next? Are the shenanigans going to continue in the free transit zone? Is the conflict going to escalate? Are we going to see an overwhelming force of Gorn ships wipe out the Klingons and move them out of the FTZ? Alternatively, are we going to see a flood of Klingon ships enter the combat zone and change the tide of battle? Are we going to see allies enter into the conflict on either side of this battle? Are we going to see a galactic war erupt like a mushroom cloud over everyone, with the juggernauts giggling and laughing all the way home? Who knows? We shall see. By the way, what did you think of that thumbnail? I thought it was a pretty good attempt to talk about the devastation as we were destroying various Gorn bases and so on. But yeah, you let me know what it is that you're interested to see in the comments for those of you who are catching us on the replay as we go forward. Ooh, begun the Gerberal has. Gerberal? Yeah, okay. All right, bring it on. Begun the General War has. There we are. The General War has. Okay. Exciting and delighting. All stuff that's going to happen in the future. Very excited to see how this pans out as we go forward. In the meantime, hope that you have done the wonderful thing if you joined us this far and hit that subscribe button. Make sure to hit the thumbs up and the like. I see that we've only got 6 likes on this video at the time right now. We want to drive that up to double digits. Please feel free to tickle the YouTube algorithm in just the right way. And if you haven't already, think about subscribing and helping us get to that 500 number, because after all, 500, unlock the community tab, some cool things that I can't talk today. There are some cool things that are available in the community tab, and looking forward to seeing that as we go forward. So yes, thank you everybody for joining us here today, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Bye for now.